Run, river, run, run through the hills. Run, river, run to the sea. Run, river, run to your place beneath the sun. Run, river, run over me.
Hi, this is Jan Lewis. Welcome to be my guest today. We have author Elizabeth Splaine with us. She's back with us. She has a new book. Welcome back, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
And her new book is Steel Butterflies. Did you do the cover yourself?
I did not. The publisher, Van Velzer Press, organized that, working with a team from Ukraine.
In the Ukraine, yeah.
No, Ukraine.
Yeah, the Ukraine.
Yeah.
I like the fact that it had her mother. I got that, at least I haven't read it yet, but I read quickly in the back. I like that her mother is featured.
That's actually not her mother. That is the old woman in the book. That's not her mother.
That's not. Wasn't there a part in the beginning where she goes with her mother?
Yes, she goes with her mother on a home health visit, and that's who she meets. The woman.
That's the woman who turns out to be a real, not a good person. At first I thought it was going to be that the woman that she meets is a fortune teller.
Oh, that's interesting.
Oh,
that would have been a great story.
Yeah. Now, this is based, it says, inspired by real people, events, and places. So tell us about the book.
Okay, so this book has been a long time in the making. Maybe 7 years ago, a friend of my family's, she was 92 at the time, and she was in Paris when the Nazis invaded, and they came to live in her house. And she and her father and mother stayed with them in the house and cooked and cleaned for them and served them. And around that same time, she started to work for the Underground, for the Office of Strategic Services, the precursor to the CIA. So she was a spy while she had Nazis living in her house. So I had known this woman through my husband's family for years.
Yeah.
And she would divulge something every now and again. She literally would just say, "Oh, when I met Rommel in Paris," and we'd say, "I'm sorry, what?" Or when I was in a meeting with Eisenhower, those kinds of things. So I started talking to her after I started writing. I said, you need to write all this down.
Yeah.
This is unbelievable. And she said, "Oh, I've thought about it. I have some notes."
Yeah.
And then I asked her years ago if I could write her story. And she said yes, but not now. So years passed, and about 6 years ago, I said to her, "I'd love to write your story." And she said, okay. So at that point, we were living in Michigan, and she was living where she was living, and I'm not divulging information about her on purpose, but I'll tell you about that. So we had several phone conversations, and at the time she was 92, and even though she had lived in the U.S. for tens of years, she still had a very thick accent, very French, like this, and she would talk like this. So over the phone, 92, very thick French accent. It was a challenge, but I had copious notes, 4, 5, 10 pages of notes from our conversations. Abruptly, in our third conversation, she said, "I can't do this anymore."
Oh, I've run into that myself. Yeah.
And I said, "Why not?"
Yeah.
And she said, "Because there are still people who live near me who know if they find out who I am, they will kill me." And I said, "You're 92.
Yeah.
Are you?" And she said, "I know." And so that was the end of that.
Well, see, at the end of that, had she paid you already?
No, this was just two friends having conversations.
Oh my God! Okay.
Yeah. No, this was
that's
just
bad too.
Yeah,
that's not good.
But obviously, I had to honor that. It broke my heart, but I moved on, and I wrote several other books that have since been published. And as she got on in age, my husband kept saying, "You have to write her story." I said, "I can't." He said, "But you have the information." I said, "I can't do it. She didn't give me permission. It's not my story to tell." So then I started thinking, maybe I could take what she told me
and put it in the book
and morph it somehow wind it into another book. So a character popped in my head who wouldn't go away, and those are often the best characters. And her name is Ebony, and she is a biracial 15-year-old girl who lives in Barrington, Rhode Island. And she's got all the normal 15-year-old girl problems, but she also lives in a primarily white town, And she doesn't have a dad. You don't know why she doesn't have a dad. But she came to me very quickly. And her mother was a home health nurse, great mom. And I started writing this book with Ebony in mind, not exactly sure where it was going to go. And then Ebony met this old woman in the book. And so as I wrote it, when I wrote the first draft, it was too close to the real person's life. Not Ebony, the old woman. And in the book, her name is Celeste DeWitt.
Yeah, it's a Madame.
Madame Celeste DeWitt, yes. And so I had people in my family read it who knew the real person and said, way too close, way too much detail, you know. So I rewrote it, and I changed a bunch of things, and it was done. You know, the second draft was done. And then I was like, well, now what am I going to do with it? But because I still didn't feel like I could publish it. So my mother-in-law, who's very, very good friends with this older woman, the real Celeste, said, the real Celeste is dying. You need to come see her.
She was 97? No, how old was she then?
The real Celeste, when she passed, was 98.
Okay.
So, and she passed last September or October. So she said, you need to come see her. So I rearranged my schedule because it was not easy to go see her. And I went to see her, and I sat for 2 hours, and she loved opera, and she loved everything having to do with literature. She had 3 PhDs. She spoke 5 languages. I mean, she just was an amazing person. And I sang some arias with her. I would sing in Italian. She would sing in French. It was very fun. And then as I was leaving, you know, I gave her a hug, and I said, I'll come back in 2 weeks just to visit.
Yeah.
And when I came home, my husband said, did you ask for permission to publish the book? And I said, no. I said, I it's just not right. I can't. So I went back 2 weeks later to see her. My mother-in-law was there too. And for some reason, she started talking about the war again.
Yeah.
And that whole time I was with her, she never opened her eyes. She was really very close to death.
Yeah.
And she kept bringing up things about the war. And I'm not exactly sure what it was. You know when you feel when something's right?
Intuition.
Yes. So I had my laptop, and I said, Celeste, can I read you something that I've written? And she said, but of course. And so I opened my laptop. I didn't even have a plan. I didn't know which chapter I was. I didn't go in with a plan, which in retrospect is ridiculous. But so I'm scrolling through trying to find an appropriate scene that isn't going to bring back yucky memories for her. And I happened upon a scene that I love in the book, which is when the old woman and Ebony are in her butterfly house.
Yeah.
And the way they interact with the butterflies and what that means to the old woman and what it comes to mean to Ebony as she is in her own chrysalis that's starting to open. And so I read it, and at the time I remember thinking, wow, this was fortunate that I happened upon this.
Yeah.
And I ended up crying because I can't get through it without crying. It's really bad.
What did she say when you were doing that?
She lay there and she was smiling, and she said, it's so beautiful. It's so bad. It's so beautiful. And she was doing this with her hands for the butterflies. It was amazing. I mean, it was a moment, right?
Yep.
So anyway, when I was done, I shut the laptop, and I looked at my mother-in-law, and then I looked back at Celeste, and I said, do I have your permission to put this book out into the world? And there was the longest pause. I was like, and she said, you do. And I literally, my mother-in-law said, my shoulders went,
oh God, yeah.
I felt this weight come off, because to spend years writing a book to think it's never going to see the light of day, and it happens, you know, but it hadn't happened to me yet.
Yeah.
So I paused and I said, thank you. And then I said, do I have your permission to use your name? Long pause. And she said, let me think about it.
Uh-oh.
And I said, okay, when I come back, we'll talk about it. And she passed away 3 days later.
3 days later. So that's why you're not going to use her name.
That's right.
What, I should know this. What does OSS stand for?
Office of Strategic Services.
That was German.
No,
it was ours.
Yeah, no, it was created by Eisenhower.
Okay.
It was the first kind of spy organization, and there were 3 branches of it. It was created in World War II to spy on the Nazis.
Yeah.
That's what it was, and it was dissolved after the war, and then it reemerged as the CIA.
But if it was pro our country, why did she fear that she'd be killed if it was found out?
Because she said that there's someone of German descent who lived near her, who, if they found out who she was and what she'd done, that they would kill her.
My God, it's like that still lives in our world.
And in the book, Ebony can't understand why this is so hard for Madame. And as the book goes on, she begins to understand, because of her own trauma from her own past, that she comes to realize through her relationship with this old woman. She begins to understand why survivors choose to move on, because they have to.
Yeah.
They can't live in that place of dire consequence for so long without physical and mental and spiritual, falling apart. So one moves on with one's life, but that doesn't mean that we forget.
Yeah.
And that's so, at one point, Ebony's best friend, Connor, who's a really fun character to write, he says it must be exhausting for her to live in 2 worlds for so long.
Oh, yeah.
Ebony says, in Paris and here, because when she talks about the war, physically she changes too, and Ebony comments on that when she watches her.
We are talking with Elizabeth Splaine, and she is the author of Steel Butterflies. How can they go about talking with you, reaching you?
So I can be reached. My website is elizabethsplaineauthor.com. And my book is available in Rhode Island. It's available at Inkfish Books in Warren, or Barrington Books in Barrington. It's also available on Amazon, of course. And hopefully, if you go into your local bookstore, you can ask for them to order it for you. Any local bookstore can do that.
So that would include probably Barnes & Noble. We've got a few.
Absolutely, Barnes &
And how
Noble.
about Tadnock up in Westboro?
Any bookstore should be able to, because it's
out for
it's
sure.
distributed through Ingram. So
where are you going to be coming up? Where are you going to be appearing?
I'm going to be at Barrington Books. Independent Bookstore Day is Saturday the 29th, and I will be at Barrington Books in Barrington, Rhode Island. And then June 3rd, I'm doing a book club. In June, I can't remember the date, there's the Barrington Arts Festival. I'll be there. I'll be doing a signing at Inkfish Books. I believe that's sometime in May. But my website at elizabethsplaineauthor.com has all of this information on it.
This is so... You mentioned double life. This is what she led. She was hosting the Nazis.
Yes.
They were living in her house.
Yes.
But she was helping down in probably the basement, the underground tunnel, helping the good guys. Right?
Yes.
That is amazing.
It is amazing. And she was 17 to 19 years old when she was doing this. And she talks about that too in the book. A lot of the stuff in the book is true, but I have changed it so that she is not recognizable. And finally, when she was close to being caught, she and her parents sewed their valuables into their clothes, and they did go underground. And when the real Celeste, after she passed, in the book, at the end of the book, and I don't want to give anything away, but something happened in real life to me that happened in the book. So at Christmas time, I was opening presents, and my in-laws had brought a group of presents, and I picked up this box, and I looked at it, and it was unlike the other boxes, and I turned it over, and I recognized the real Celeste's handwriting. And I looked at my mother-in-law, I said, is this? And she said, yeah. And it's this necklace.
It was a necklace.
Mm-hmm.
The lady who passed away, did she ever mention it to you in real life while she was alive?
My mother-in-law said that she had something special for me.
I wonder if she had that when she was over across,
I don't know. But when I opened this at Christmas, I was actually scared to open it, because I realized in that moment that the real Celeste died in September. I had her pass away in September. And again, this book was finished way before the real Celeste died.
Yeah.
So they passed away at this, and then in the book, Ebony receives a gift.
Yeah.
It's not a necklace, but she receives a gift. And so I was sitting there like, oh my God, this is literally what I wrote. It was just so bizarre.
Is that, I can't see it that well from here, is that onyx?
I don't know what it is.
Is it black? What color is it?
It's I think it's like smoky quartz.
Okay.
Or something. I don't know. Knowing her, she was, I don't know.
I was take it somewhere and have it looked at. So
I
you'll
absolutely will. And so I can maybe have it insured. But I wear it, I feel her. I mean, she was a remarkable person.
So she died how many years ago?
Last year.
Last year.
Yeah.
Did she have a funeral?
She did not. She had no children. Her husband had passed away years ago, and she had no children of her own and no family, and so she requested that there be no service and that her ashes be scattered over the Atlantic where her house was.
I've run into how many funerals, wakes lately, where I would think most of us walk in and expect to see the casket either closed or open.
Mm-hmm.
It's very odd.
That there's nothing there, you mean?
I don't go for it. I mean, to me, it's... No. But I don't know, in our family it wasn't done, cremation, and you grow up saying the way you see it.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't go for open caskets either, because the person, we want to remember them the way they were, but at least we knew they were in their bed. Out there, like, okay, I'm out here, and I wish you well, have a good trip. But this is like, the last one I went to, I saw a box, and I had a feeling, and I said to the lady, I said, what's that? That's where the person now resides.
It is interesting that there's, when you write this stuff, it does make you think. And, all of that stuff, the viewing, the casket, the burial, is for the living.
That's what my father used to say.
It's for us, this is my opinion, for us to process the loss, to continue our journey of grief.
Yeah.
So it is interesting. So when you make that decision for yourself, whatever decision, are you doing it for you, or are you doing it for people who are left behind? So
both. For me, it would be both.
Yeah. I haven't made that decision yet. I just went through this. My mom passed away last May, unexpectedly, and so I've been through that recently. And I had never. She was cremated, and I had never been to.
Did she want that? Okay.
Yeah. But I don't know that I knew that, and it didn't faze me either way, because I was actually with her when she passed.
Yeah.
So to me, she wasn't really even there anymore anyway, because she was, we had to remove tubes and all that. So we made the decision. So, but I'd much rather remember her as she was.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
Yeah.
We have been talking with Elizabeth Splaine, and she is the author of a brand new book, Steel Butterflies. How can they reach you, get your book?
So you can always go to my website to see what's going on, elizabethsplaineauthor.com, all one word. And my books are always available at any bookstore. If you go in and ask them to order it, they can order it for you through Ingram. Specifically, you can also go to, if you're in Rhode Island, you can go to Barrington Books in Barrington, Rhode Island, or Inkfish Books in Warren, Rhode Island. But any bookstore can order it for you on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all the great places you can get books.
Now, we have, as people here in Upton know, we have a huge, beautiful new community center that's been built, will open soon. And in a majority, I guess, the part of it will be our brand new Upton Library. And there'll be, a dedicated, you can find it there. Give us time to get it over there. And, it'll be in the dedicated local authors section. Okay, what's on the document for our next book? There has to be, right? Do you have one?
I do. So my very first book that I wrote that was never published.
Yeah.
And then I ended up, it was sitting in a drawer. And then I wrote 2 other books as follow-ups to that first one. And those were my first 2 published books, Blind Order and Blind Knowledge. I started to think that I needed to go back. A lot of people, some authors say, you can't go back. My feeling is this was unfinished business.
Yeah.
So I pulled out the manuscript And I'm rewriting that very first book so that it will end up being a trio of books.
Okay, so it's never been out before.
Correct.
So this is a new. Is it fiction, thriller? What's it going to be?
It's the story of In Blind Order, which is my first published book. There is a blind child psychologist named Julian Stryker, and he's blinded by one of his clients. And he's so troubled that he missed the warning signs in this kid that he goes back to school to become a profiler, gets hooked up with Alexander Hayes, who's a Boston homicide detective, and they solve crimes together.
That sounds right up my alley.
Well, that's Blind Order. So in this first book, we learn how Julian was actually blinded. So it opens with the scene. The first sentence in the book is Julian asking this kid, Jeremy Walker, sitting across from him, have you ever tortured an animal? That's the first question. And that first chapter ends with Julian being blinded. And then we fast forward to how he meets Alex Hayes and et cetera, et cetera.
How far are we on that book now?
It's completely written, but now I'm rewriting it. So
you're rewriting it?
Yeah, I'm rewriting it because it wasn't long enough. I didn't know what I was doing. This was 7 years ago. I just literally, this character came in my head, and I started to, I didn't know what I was doing. And so it's funny to go back and see that. There's a lot of good stuff in there, but I'm rewriting it. And I'm not even going from the document online. I am literally retyping. I have the manuscript here, and I'm retyping. And normally now when I write, I have too many words. This was only like 65,000 words, so I need to beef it up a little bit, which is not hard. Just
have you ever read Robert Parker? He passed away. He's the Spencer novel.
I think I did.
Based in Boston.
My husband did.
It's he's a gumshoe, a whodunit guy, Spencer. And he was on television, too, for a long time.
Spencer for Hire? Was that
Yes.
Yeah.
And I love Parker's style, where a lot of them are like one sentence, but someone will ask him a sentence, and he'll say, it's like, are you Spencer? They come into his office, it goes like, as far as I know. And then it's just like that. But you get through the chapters just like that. This sounds really good. What's the title? Do you have a title?
Well, it was called Blind Leading the Blind, but that's been used so many times that as of now it does not have a title. Yeah. But the other two are Blind Order and Blind Knowledge, so it needs to be Blind Faith. I'll figure something out. But it's ironic, not really, that it has history in it, because most of my books do. I didn't realize that when I wrote this, but it's they end up chasing these priceless books that tell the history of Central America from different perspectives, from Columbus, his son, Henry VIII, and Diego de Calderon.
And we'll figure out how that ties in with this mystery.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, when do you think? August?
I know. I'm hoping, I was really hoping it would be out by Christmas, but that's not probably realistic given the fact that I need to finish writing it. Then it needs to be rewritten. Then it has to go through 2 or 3 editorial processes. So I'm thinking next spring.
That is good. Her family, she didn't have any family.
No family.
Who knew her? Or did she pass away in a nursing home? Or?
No, she passed away in her home, a mansion on the Atlantic, and she had a hospital bed brought in, and she had a nurse come in, I think, a couple times a week, because she was bedridden for months.
Oh, yeah.
But she had a group of, I think it was 8 to 12 people that literally just rotated and would bring food. And she used to go out to eat all the time. So local restaurants all knew her. They would bring her oysters. Mm-hmm. I mean, this woman was she's hard to describe because we went to a dinner party there, and a dinner party to her was full European, the Charger, just anything, black tie, everything was an event for her. And in the book, she has a room dedicated to teddy bears.
I would love that.
Because when she was in the war, she had teddy bears, but she used them for target practice.
What?
Because she had to learn how to shoot.
Oh my God.
That is true.
Yeah.
The real Celeste's house was teddy bears were everywhere. There wasn't one room.
Yeah.
They were everywhere. Everywhere.
You saw them when you visit her.
Oh yeah, they're everywhere. Yeah.
What happened to her mansion when she passed?
My understanding is it all went to a gentleman who was taking care of her in the last years of her life. He took care of her when her husband died. Again, this is in the book.
Yeah.
Her husband died. He asked this person to take care of her, whatever she needed. And she was very capable. I mean, he's been long gone for 30 years or so. But this man and his wife took care of her, and I think in exchange received...
But he's gone now?
The man who received everything?
Yeah.
No.
He's alive, okay.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that movie, Driving Miss Daisy.
Yeah. This is kind of like, I describe this as Tuesdays with Maury.
Yeah.
Meets Firefly Lane, Kristen Hanna.
Mm-hmm.
But Driving Miss Daisy is a very apt,
Was she very prim and proper? Because I'm part French on one side, and I'm thinking, did she speak Parisian or Canadian French?
Parisian, definitely Parisian.
Yeah, that's what I do too. We're going to wrap it up, but again, we've had Elizabeth Splaine with us, and she has written her latest novel, Steel Butterflies. And again, where can they get a hold of your book?
You can go to my website, elizabethsplaineauthor.com, or you can go to barnesandnoble.com, Amazon, or any local bookstore. You go in and ask for it. They can order it through Ingram. And thank you.
Well, thank you, and hopefully she's going to let me know when the next one comes out that this is going to... Would you call it a thriller, the next one, or a mystery? Just kind of...
Both.
Oh, wow.
Most of mine are mystery thrillers.
Oh, this is going to be good. Oh, I love that kind of stuff.
Thank you.
One thing I don't... Just for me... So a lot of book clubs wonder why some people, they'll come, but then they won't come back. Because the book is too boring. Maybe it's too historical fiction. Or it's got to get me.
Yeah,
wow,
I agree.
To take me through it.
I absolutely agree.
And I don't want
some people give it 50 pages, some people give it 100 pages. So, I don't know. This we meet Ebony way before we meet Madam.
Yeah.
But
well, wait till I read this one. You can go. Don't forget, you can go to the Upton Library. I'll donate it to them, and I assume they're still going to have the same dedicated authors, and you get to read it there. So, thanks for being with us. You going back to Rhode Island?
I am.
Where are you? Barrington?
We were in Barrington. We moved to Bristol last year.
Okay. Okay. Is it far from Barrington?
No. It's literally 2 miles across the water, but it takes 15 minutes to drive.
Okay, because I remember years ago I looked at an apartment in Barrington. It was okay, except it had, what is that thing, iron or steel staircase? It's very skinny and it goes up like this.
Oh, yeah.
I said,
That's
that's a lawyer's dream. If I have guests here and they go, guess what? I'm like, no. And can be so clumsy, it's going to be me. And I'm going to be, with me, likely I'll hit the right foot and I can't drive. And I'll have it, which happened before, and it's in a cast. I'm like, oh, good.
Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah, like...
This is what you remember from Barrington?
Yeah, and, when you go to a grocery store or whatever, and they've got the little go-karts you can ride. I love those, but they don't go fast enough. And I've taken out a few displays trying to get around a corner. That's spastic. All right, thank you. And we're going to see her hopefully soon, okay, when her new book comes out.
Thanks for everything.
All right, we'll see you next time and be my guest.
Riding on a shooting star, heading out toward a dream. Tomorrow's even closer than it seems.